Her Majesty sleeping on my chair. That is one very comfortable, Mona. Welcome, let's talk about the Suqqu summer collection. So they released a pre-summer collection that didn't really spark my interest much, and then they announced this summer collection that was just like so full of like fiery orange warm tones that I was immediately attracted to it like a moth to a flame. With that said, honestly, I don't really follow Suqqu's releases that closely, and I don't have the patience to fight with people over their limited edition stuff. And I had a super busy week, the week that that collection had released on Cult Beauty. So I only like went to check maybe about a week after it had already been released. Luckily for me, most of the items were still in stock. Unfortunately, I don't know that that's still the case. I think for a fact the blush, one of the blushes has already been sold out, because I was texting with Alice shortly after I had made my order and she said that the blush was already out of stock. So I ordered 3 items from this collection. The melting powder blush in the shade 101, which looks like this beautiful fiery orange color. I was already familiar with the melting powder formula because I have already 2 blushes from their original melting powder blush release that we're going to like swatch comparison next to the new color that I have. What I was even more excited about though is the highlighter that came with the collection. This beautiful, again, the shade is 101. This is a gorgeous highlighter with this marbled pattern with the Suqqu logo in it, and once again it comes in the melting powder formula, which is why I was so unbelievably excited for this, because the melting powder formula is one of the most exciting new formulas that I've seen for face products released this year. And in addition to that, I'm finally dipping my toes into Suqqu's eyeshadows, so I ordered this quad. This one, brushes just keep falling off. This is in the shade 115, and it comes with these 4 like rosy browny shades with that interesting yellowy gold color over here. I don't know how original these colors are, but it struck me as a very elegant, very beautiful iteration of warm toned, neutral, but with interesting undertones eyeshadows, and we're going to get to the swatching in a little bit. But the thing with Suqqu eyeshadows is that oftentimes when you look at photos online, they look so dull in terms of their texture. But yesterday when I was watching this, I was so impressed because they are very buttery smooth, they are very silky to the touch, and they have like little micro shimmers in them, which gives them a little bit more complexity than just a flat shimmer. They are not anything like a, let's say, Pat McGrath metallic eyeshadow. They are a thing of their own. It's a really beautiful formula. Into that, before we jump into the blush, I'm quickly going to apply bronzer. I'm going to take my Unicorn Tears bronzer from Too Faced, and I'm going to use that with my new Hinoki brush from Sonia G. I wanted to apply my bronzer together with you because I wanted to mention again how much I have been enjoying this brush, especially with bronzer. It is just so soft and it diffuses product so beautifully. I'm in love with this brush. It is so luxurious and it's just such a wonderful experience to apply your makeup with it. Oftentimes when it comes to brushes, and especially to Food Day, I have the feeling that a lot of people would tell you, yeah, but it's a brush. It's, you know, if it does its job, do you really need a brush that costs so much money? No, you don't. Absolutely not. Only if you can afford it. You're provided with an experience that I think is going to be different from using, you know, a good old Zoeva brush. A good old Zoeva brush will still apply your bronzer really well, but it will just not be quite the same experience in terms of, you know, the visual pleasure that you get when you look at this brush, the joy of holding it, and the way it applies makeup on your face. So, just wanted to come on camera and say that, and I'm probably going to repeat it once more during my monthly roundup video, which I should probably film soon because we're nearing the end of the month. I had promised you that I'm going to start doing these monthly because last time I did a bi-monthly update, we were here for almost an hour. Alright, now that the bronzer is on, I would like to get into the blush. Now, before we get into the blush, I would like to swatch it and also give you some comparisons with the other melting powder blush that I have that is also orange, and with some similar colors that I have in my collection. So what struck me with this color is that it is this beautiful straight up pumpkin orange. And the thing is, oftentimes when you have a color like this, you will see it online and you will think that it's a pumpkin orange, but then you will get it and it will be more of like a coral shade or something like that. This is not coral, this is a straight up orange. I swatched it yesterday, I'm going to swatch it for you now as well. If you're not familiar with the melting powder blushes, these are some sort of like a gel powder hybrid that looks absolutely flawless on the face. It's such a pleasure to apply, which is why I didn't even have to think twice when I saw this color. Look at that, that is just orange. And if you did not believe me that this is orange, I wanted to show this next to a classic in my collection, one that I absolutely adore, and I would have called my favorite like orange blush thus far, and that is Tiger Lily from Becca. I think even visually you can appreciate that Tiger Lily is so much more coral in comparison to the shade from Suqqu. It is still an absolutely glorious blush. This is one of my favorite blushes in my collection. But let's look at how much more salmon pink this leans compared to the shade from Suqqu. And I have one more blush that I would like to compare, and this is the shade Fuego Flush. It is in a cream formula and it is from Fenty Beauty. Now, this probably comes closer in terms of the orange undertones. However, like I said, it is a cream formula and it has a ton of golden shimmer running through it. It is also a lighter and more tangerine orange compared to this, which is more of like a burnt pumpkin color. The other Suqqu blush that I have, which is also orange from the original melting powder release, and that is the shade 05. So this is 05. Let me hold them next to each other. This is 05 and this is the new 101. You can see they're both orange, but the new blush is so much more of like a vibrant, like I said, pumpkin color, whereas this shade, also another extremely unique blush that I have, this is like a nude leaning, very yellow toned orange. It is one of the most unique blushes that I have in my collection. I love it so much. It's been one of my favorite blushes lately. So you can clearly see when you compare the 05 versus the new 101, this is so much more nude and yellow in tone, whereas this is so much more vibrant, darker and orange in tone. And now for the part that you and I have both been waiting for, let's apply the blush. I'm going to take the other brush that came with the Hinoki set, which is the little angle dude, which I have also been loving. And I'm going to just put a few dabs. These pick up quite a good amount of color. And let's see how vibrant this is going to look. Did I go overboard and I'm going to look like a pumpkin? Oh yeah, I'm going to look like a pumpkin. I need to blend, blend, blend. You can see how easily this blends out and how like natural and luminous it looks on the skin, and that is the case for all of the blushes that I have in this formula. And it's just such a fun color because indeed it has very strong orange tones to it. I don't know that it's going to be everyone's taste, but it's mine because I love orange blushes. I'm so happy that makeup companies are finally making like more orange leaning blushes rather than more pink leaning blushes. There you have it. I look like a happy pumpkin and I could not be more thrilled about it. Okay, let's talk about the highlighter now. This is also the shade 101 and it has this beautiful marbled pattern. Again, like I said, it comes in the melting powder formula, and when I swirl my finger into it, I get this kind of like coppery peach sheen to come through, which if you know anything about my taste in highlighters, is exactly my kind of jam. And again, I'm going to use the same brush to apply the highlighter. So I'm just going to clean off my little Hinoki set brush and then go into the highlighter. If you have a very light skin tone, I think this is going to be too dark for you because I can barely pull it off with my skin tone. But just the color is so beautiful, and as this is meant to be a summer collection, I also understand why it is somewhat deeper in tone, because the idea is that you're going to go to the beach, you're going to tan a bit, and then you're going to need a somewhat deeper highlighter, something excuse me, something that's not going to look too frosty on your skin once you get a tan. So I can easily imagine this looking absolutely glorious once I have a bit of a summer tan. The formula is beautiful, it's very blendable. There is absolutely no like kick up or powder to it because it's just this like gel powder hybrid, which is very easy to move across your skin and to blend out. And in terms of the color, what I'm getting is a very strong like gold copper sheen. Now, do I have something similar in my collection? I feel like probably the closest we're going to get to this shade will be Golden Nectar from Pat McGrath. So I'm actually quite curious how this compares to the shade from Pat McGrath in terms of its tones. I think actually the shade from Pat McGrath seems to be a little bit lighter in its undertones. So I think the tones of these highlighters are very similar, both based in like the gold copper peach family, but the Suqqu highlighter, surprisingly, is deeper in tone compared to the one from Pat McGrath. And I already thought the one from Pat McGrath was just a tad too dark for my skin, so this one is definitely dark when it comes to my skin tone, and I think it's not looking too dark and too ridiculous right now. I think I can just about pull it off, but if you're a skin tone that is lighter than mine, you might not be able to pull this off unless you put on a tan. But the formula is glorious, it just looks so beautiful, natural, and it just melts with your skin. That's what I love about this formula, it really melts with your skin. I'm going to stick with Suqqu for my lipstick, so I'm going to take this shade, which is their Extra Glow lipstick in the shade 01, which is a light peach color, a beautiful nude, very creamy, very comfortable. This lipstick, by the way, is not new, it's not part of their new summer collection. I don't have any of the lipsticks that come with the summer collection. I just wanted to stick with the Suqqu theme. And finally, for the product that I'm probably the most excited to try because it's my first try of the Suqqu eyeshadow formula, we have the quad in 115. And the quad comes in very similar packaging to the melting powder blushes. It's this very slim black lacquer packaging with the Suqqu logo and a bit of that gold detailing in the middle. The eyeshadow comes basically in the same sort of packaging, it's just a little bit thicker because it has to host the eyeshadows. But essentially it's the same kind of packaging, it's very sleek, it's plastic, but it feels heavy and weighty in the hand to justify the price tag that comes with it. And it feels, you know, simple but luxurious, which is probably what Japanese high-end makeup would stand for. Before I do an eye look, let's just quickly swatch the eyeshadows. I'm going to swatch them in this order, so I'm going to start with the gold and then we're going to end with the matte brown eyeshadow. I did some quick swatches that I posted on my Instagram and I was very surprised, particularly by the gold shade, because I don't know whether it's going to come across. I will shine an artificial light if necessary on it, but this shade has a very interesting sparkle running through it. So let me just quickly swatch the eyeshadows first. So this is like the pink salmon color, a beautiful undertone. Then the next shade is this glorious chocolate brown, which I cannot wait to put on my lids. I love me good chocolate brown. And finally we have the matte brown shade, which fits very nicely with the color story. I think the array of colors is very complementary to each other. You can combine them, but at the same time you can also just throw any of these eyeshadows on your lids and call it a day. Now I really want to talk about that gold shadow, because I wouldn't even necessarily call this a gold. To me this is much more of like actually like a pale pastel yellow color. And what surprised me about this color is, let's see if I can find an angle in which to show you. Can you see the beautiful like blurple sparkles that are in this eyeshadow that create this like sort of like glass effect? This shadow is just so beautiful. The only eyeshadow that I'm not planning on using is the little pink shade over here. I will use it another time, so if you're interested we can always come back and do it another time. But I would like to do a look with the chocolate brown and the gold shade in my inner corner. So I'm first going to take a fluffy blending brush and I'm going to go into the brown shade. There is a fair amount of kick up, these are quite soft and quite powdery. Just to mention in terms of information that might be relevant to you. And I'm just going to blend it out. It's blending out effortlessly, as you can see. I think it has enough depth to it so that it can create a little bit of definition in your outer corner, but at the same time it blends out easily enough. So I think that makes the eyeshadow more versatile in terms of what you can do with the looks. If this was just slightly lighter in tone, I think it would have been too light to create any sort of definition, and that would have made the quad a lot less versatile. You would have to pull out another eyeshadow if you wanted to have more depth. I'm going to use the same brush, and because this brush has a little bit of point to it, I will try to use that pointy tip to actually build up the shade here in the outer corner of the eye without diffusing it too much, just to create a bit of definition. And now I'm not sure what the best policy is when it comes to these eyeshadows being used with fingers or with a brush. So I think I'm going to go my way, which would be using just my fingers. And I don't know how these would react to glitter glue because of the texture. These feel like a blend of like a matte and a satin and a bit of shimmer to it, so I don't know that these are really going to benefit from glitter glue, so I'm not going to use glitter glue. I'm just going to apply the eyeshadow as it is with my fingers all over the eyelid. This is such a pretty brown. Obviously, don't expect a lot of like sparkle and glitter coming out of these eyeshadows. If that's what you want, Suqqu is going to be the wrong address for that. But I've slowly been like getting used to formulas that are not as high shine, metallic and glittery as Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath, because I've really been enjoying my Tom Ford quads with the wet and dry formula, which are still a different formula from these, but again are a formula that doesn't deliver too much, you know, metallic impact. Now, I'm very curious about that yellow shade, but because of the glitter in it, I suspect that it will probably benefit from a bit of glitter glue, so I'm going to take a bit of my NYX glitter glue. Oh yeah, and one of you was asking, because yours also broke here at the bottom, what I'm doing with mine. So I kind of like squeeze, and as soon as I see that something's coming out, I kind of collect it with my finger, and then I put it on the back of my hand, spread it out, and use it to apply on my lids. I'm going to pop on that glitter glue right here into the inner corners of my eyes. And then I'm going to take my Sonia G pencil brush, and I'm going to go into the pale yellow color. Okay, and on my lower lash line, I'm kind of going to mix this and this again. So I'm going to apply this towards my outer corner and this on the rest of my lower lash line. And that's pretty much going to complete the look. And again, I'm having visions of applying that gold shade from the Suqqu quad and then layering the Astral from the Bridgerton 1 palette over top of that, because it already has a bit of those glitters going through it. I think the two together as like a one and done would look sublime as a summer makeup look. Okay, running a little bit of this shade here, the matte, and then taking the satin metallic and applying that onto the rest of the lower lash line. Taking a somewhat smaller blending brush just to give everything one nice final blend. I zoomed you in a little bit to show you how this look turned out up close and personal. Overall, my first impressions, final thoughts on my first impressions. These are only first impressions. I usually need a little bit of time to use products a couple of times before I can really form some final thoughts. So far, I'm really happy with everything that I got, but I was familiar with the melting blush or the melting powder formula, so I was pretty sure I'm going to like the highlighter and the blush. Copper highlighters, they've always been a weakness of mine, so as soon as I heard that it's the melting powder formula with a copper sheen on it, there was not a single doubt in my mind that I'm going to purchase that highlighter. As I said, the eyeshadows are obviously a more subtle formula. They don't have the fanfare of metallic sheen and glitter that other formulas that I'm used to using have, but they're beautiful undertones. They look really flattering and flawless on the eye. I know a lot of you are fans of Suqqu eyeshadows, precisely because they lack that fanfare and because they're a little bit more subtle in their nature. And like I said, I've been getting used to, you know, somewhat different textures on my eyelids, and I've been enjoying, you know, just something a little different for me. I think in terms of first impressions, there's really nothing more than I can add at the moment, but I will get back at you after I've used these a couple of times to really let you know how I feel about these. Let me know whether you have any of these. How do you feel about them? Are you planning on purchasing them if they ever come back in stock? As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!